Welcome to the City. I'm Anthony Wilson, the Public Information Officer for the City of San Angelo. And joining us today is our City Engineer, Clinton Bailey. We are here to talk about street maintenance. Clinton, thanks for coming.
You bet, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
Well, in the coming year, we're going to see the street maintenance budget for the city almost triple from $600,000 to $1.68 million. So what do you anticipate that we'll be able to do with the extra funding?
That's correct. Over the years, the cost of that seal coat operation has increased. At the same time, our budget has decreased. We try to maintain about an 8-year rotation, getting around to every street in San Angelo and seal coating that on an 8-year basis. Since that cost increase, since our budget has decreased, we are at about a 30-year rotation now. So we're trying to catch back up on that and do more streets again to increase the useful life of those roads.
So is it fair to say that with the tripling of the budget, we'll see 3 times more street work being done in the coming year?
You'll see 3 times more amount of work that has been done in the last several years, or about the same amount of work that was being done about 10 years ago. You know, it's a level of maintenance that we would like to try to maintain, and we're just trying to catch up at this point.
And when you talk about seal coating, explain very briefly, what does that consist of?
Seal coating consists of placing the asphalt, liquid asphalt, tar, a lot of people say, down on the surface of an existing roadway, and then covering that up with gravel or aggregate, as we call it. The purpose of that is to seal all of the micro cracks in the roadway, to keep the moisture, to keep the water out of the foundation of the roadway to better preserve that.
Because once that water seeps into that foundation, that's when your major disrepair starts.
Correct. Once the water does migrate through the surface into that supporting structure, that's where we start seeing the failures, the potholes, and things like that.
And the most of the cost of a street is actually below that foundation. It's the base, right?
Probably 2/3 of the cost of the street is what is actually below the surface that you never see. So everything that we do on top to protect that surface protects that investment below that.
Now, how many miles of city streets are in need of repair right now? And do you have an estimated cost for doing all those repairs?
Right. We're looking at somewhere in the 200 to 250 mile range of streets that need to be reconstructed. And of those streets, there are options ranging from severe to less severe, intensive to less intensive reconstruction. For instance, complete reconstruction that involves the complete removal of the roadway surface down to about 22 inches through the foundation of the roadway. The most expensive type of reconstruction. Probably looking at somewhere around 30% of that 200 miles of streets range that need that level of replacement. Others may benefit from a mill and overlay process, or a milling down and removal of a portion of that supporting foundation and stabilization of that, and then overlaying that with new asphalt. So there are a lot of different options that we can look at as we look at reconstruction and intensive maintenance options for these roads.
Well, when you talk about that number of miles, about 250 miles, you said, if you were to be able to do all of those roads in the way that they need at the moment, do you know what the cost of that would be?
Roughly, if all of them had to be reconstructed, somewhere in the $150 million range.
And to reiterate, we have $1.68 million available in the coming year.
That's correct. We have $1.68 million available, which barely keeps up the interest on those dollars.
So with $150 million of needs, which is 3 times what the general fund budget of the city is, there's no way, obviously, that we can afford to address all those needs. So how do you go about deciding which streets to address and to repair?
We have to take a very strategic approach, and the first thing that we have to do is have a pavement evaluation performed of all the paved surfaces in the city of San Angelo to determine exactly what our infrastructure needs and issues are. Once we have that evaluation completed, we will be able to apply dollars to our maintenance needs, various maintenance needs, from seal coat to mill and overlay to full reconstruction. Some of these roadways, depending on the soil types, might need something along the lines of concrete or roller compacted concrete. This pavement evaluation will enable us to start budgeting long-term, short-term and long-term, to get our streets where we feel like we need to be 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And and really establish these routine maintenance programs and budgets for those that have long been missing in our operations recently.
You mentioned about the roller compacted concrete, or RCC as a lot of people are referring to it. And San Angelo actually has two of those streets now. One is Great Creek Road, which of course is newly constructed, and the newly renovated Lakeview Heroes Drive, which used to be 50th Street. Talk a little bit about RCC and what that involves and what the benefits of it are.
Okay, roller compacted concrete is an old technology, but it is very new to us and very new to the state of Texas. Grape Creek Road is a road that we rehabilitated with RCC. Lakeview Heroes Drive is a newly constructed road out of RCC. It is a zero slump concrete mixture that is placed with an asphalt laydown machine and then compacted behind that. It doesn't rely on moisture in the mixture as much as compaction to gain strength. These two streets, Grape Creek Road and 50th Street, were the first two public roadways ever constructed out of this material in the state of Texas. Now, since those have been constructed, the city of New Braunfels has constructed an RCC street. The city of Austin is looking at a portion of South Lamar, just south of downtown, that they're constructing out of RCC. TxDOT has developed a specification, and they're bidding this material as an alternate on some interstate jobs. So we're seeing more and more of this, and we're seeing more and more of this because it makes sense financially. Construction with RCC is much like concrete, which creates a very low maintenance, very long lasting roadway. We see maintenance needs that are just a fraction of the cost over the useful life of asphalt streets, and a useful life 2 to 3 times that of a traditional asphalt street. So basically, the roads that we are building and rebuilding out of this, we can take off of our maintenance schedule. We won't see the potholes. We won't see the cracks that need crack seal. These roads will never need a seal coat. Maybe a crack here and there, little differential movement, replacing small sections, possibly a diamond grinding for surface treatment, but very, very low maintenance.
So when we talk about roller compacted concrete, it costs a little bit more initially, but has virtually no maintenance cost, and the lifespan is 3 or 4 times longer than what you would see with an asphalt street.
That's correct. Where an asphalt street has a typical useful life of about 25 years, we're looking at 50, 75, even up to 100 years with roller compacted concrete, again, depending on the conditions and the traffic.
So how are Grape Creek Road and Lakeview Heroes Drive, how are they performing to date?
Grape Creek Road and Lakeview Heroes Drive are performing very well at this point. We're seeing a lot more traffic on Grape Creek Road. That's both residential traffic, and we're seeing quite a bit of truck traffic there too, back and forth. We are continuously monitoring the performance along with some other roads that were recently constructed in the state of Texas. We've recently taken a trip to New Braunfels to take a look at a road outside of a CEMEX materials production plant out there, where 1,000 loaded belly dump trucks drive over this road every day, and it looks a lot like it did the day it was constructed. We don't see any cracking. The ride is very smooth on both of the roads here in San Angelo, so it's something you're going to see more and more of in San Angelo and around the state of Texas.
So when you say in San Angelo, do you have any idea about when we'll see more RCC streets here?
Well, we'd love to do Bell Street out of RCC, and again, when you look at the amount of traffic that roadway carries and the reduction in useful life and increased maintenance of an asphalt street for that type of traffic, RCC makes a lot of sense. The segment of Bell Street that we're looking at is from the bridge north to Houston Hart, with a cost of around $10 million for that type of construction.
Mm-hmm. And we only have about a minute left, and I know we get this question a lot in public information, but how can you generally tell if a street is a city street, something that is our responsibility, versus something that's the responsibility of the Texas Department of Transportation, which of course is the state?
Right. Generally, the configuration of the roadway, most of the TxDOT maintained roadways running through town are 4+ lanes. We have very few of those in the city system. The signage on the roadway, the names of the roadway, they're usually either running through town, are going to be SH, state highways, And they're typically maintained just a little bit better than city streets are. So it may not be real easy to tell the difference, and we get the same questions all the time. You know, can you fix this pothole? Can you fix this sign here? Can you fix the traffic signal there? But a lot of times it is difficult to differentiate between the two.
We've been talking with the city engineer, Clinton Bailey. We will return in a moment with our fire chief, Brian Dunn. But first, we're going to spotlight an outstanding city employee, heavy equipment operator, Samuel Casas.
My name is Samuel Casas. I work for Street and Bridge, heavy equipment operator. I've been here 3 years. Heavy equipment operator, we maintain the roads, alleys, make sure there's safe pathways during storms, trees fall down, go out there with their equipment, tandems, loaders, pick up tree branches, load them up, get them out of the way. When the water runs over ditches and stuff, we go out there, put barrels out there, make sure, turn around, don't drown. So we maintain the road, make sure we give it more life until we can repair it with a new road. But as far as heavy equipment operator, we know that's a label for the heaviest equipment that we have. We're the ones certified to run those equipments. We're trained for those equipments. We've been doing it over 10 years right now. I mean, I started with the loader and to me it's fun getting all these new equipment and just learning new stuff, and I like it a lot. So I was always out of town working. I used to work for Reese Alberts, and my wife told me, she needed me home. They needed a father, my kids, and one of the places I lived was the city, and thank God I got hired here. Gary gave me an opportunity to work here, and I love working here. I take pride in what I do because I represent the city of San Angelo. So just knowing that I'm there for the people, I'm here for the people. Make sure we went out there for the Wildcat and fought that fire, and and people don't know that about us. We go out there and we make sure it's safe. We go out there when you're inside the houses. We make sure it's safe if you have to travel, and I take pride in that. I just fell in love with machines. I had my CDL driving trucks, and there's something about machines, being on that. I like when we go out there and when trees fall down, the cops call us out there, and you never know when they're gonna call us out there. I'm on call like every 5th week, and just having the phone there, knowing that they could call me in a minute, not knowing what I'm gonna go out there and do, and just knowing that I'm here for a purpose. Make sure everything's safe and the streets are open up for public, to cross safely. And when it's snowing and the roads are slippery, we're out there with blades, clearing that path for y'all. Make sure it's safe. Make sure nobody gets hurt, and that's our biggest priority. Make sure nobody gets hurt. I like doing cleanup in San Angelo. I just like, and I know people appreciate that. They come outside and say thank you, and it puts a smile on my face. Knowing that there's nothing more than doing a job that people take appreciation of. And when we do the cleanup for San Angelo, I see it in people's eyes. So it does mean a lot. So that's one thing that I hold true to my heart, because we are helping people that don't have a truck to haul trash to the dump and stuff like that. Unfortunate, and we go out there and we try to help them. And that's what I like, painting their houses and stuff. It's awesome. I like to be kickboxing.
Really?
Yeah, I get to. That's one of my hobbies. I've been doing it for like 8 years. So it's just something, just to exercise is what I like to do. It just clears my mind. So, I went to school here my sophomore year, and best time of my life. And I told my wife, she was pregnant. She's like, "Where do you want to move?" And I said, "You know what? Let's move to San Angelo." And I have best memories here, and I think we could have better memories, better memories in San Angelo. And we came up here, and best decision ever. I mean, I feel so blessed working for San Angelo. Every day to me, it's a good day at work. I just feel so lucky to just be here. Like I said, I've worked out of town, and just knowing I'm going to go home and sleep in my own bed and just play with my kids, I can take them to the park. To me, every day is a blessing, and I make sure I do the best, for that day. I take pride. I do United Way too, and I just want to say that, the city does a lot for United Way, and like I said, it puts a smile on my face, just helping people and knowing what the city does for the community, and You know, we do a lot for the people, and I'm proud to work for the city.
Welcome back to the city. I am Anthony Wilson, the Public Information Officer for the City of San Angelo. And joining us now is our Fire Chief Brian Dunn. He is here to talk about a new regional fire training facility that we are working toward. Brian, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Now, I mentioned we're looking at building a new regional fire training facility. Talk a little bit about what that training center would entail.
The new fire training center will have a burn building, offices, classrooms for the students, area and ground for different types of fire props we use, such as propane props, and we may find some new things that we can incorporate in and out there also. It's kind of the same concept we have down at the training center we have down by the river now, except we're not allowed to burn by TQ down there right now. So live fire evolutions are pretty much banned down there right now.
So when you talk about that sort of training, I would think that that would be critical training for a firefighter, and particularly for your cadets who maybe have never been in those sort of situations before.
To certify somebody as a firefighter in the state of Texas, you have to do live fire burn evolutions. So right now, we can't get any more people through down there with live fire evolutions to get them certified as firefighters. And where this has an effect on the city is that if I can't certify firefighters to replace the ones that retire or leave as we go, it could drive up overtime costs immensely. So we need to keep producing those firefighters. We run our own academy to do this.
And you talked about there's a state agency, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, that has concerns because of the proximity of where your current fire training facility is now to the Concho River.
That's correct. The training facility is almost directly across from the water intake for the city water supply.
And where would the new training center be?
The new training facility will be located out on Highway 67 north behind the animal shelter.
Are there any other limitations of the current fire training facility other than what you talked about, not being able to do live burns there?
It's relatively old. We cannot burn in the tower at all, and it wasn't designed to be burned in. We have a one-story burn house. The new facility will have a 5-story tower burn building with at least 2 stories on the burn side of it, so we can have multiple burns on multiple floors in this tower, which we cannot do at this time.
Now, this will be a regional fire training facility. So besides San Angelo Fire Department firefighters, who else will be training there?
Well, we'll open up, what we'll do is get TEKS instructors to come in here, which a lot of times they will teach stuff for free, or there's a registration fee, which sometimes we have to pay that fee also. Or we may be putting on classes for anybody, and they could come from outside our college, but the main concern for us was trying to get some training in this area for some of the firefighters in our 13 county college, because it's extremely expensive to have to travel to Dallas, Fort Worth, or Houston, or some of these other places to pick up some of these classes that they may want to get trained on.
So when you talk about the COG, that is the Council of Governments, and there are 13 counties in the Concho Valley Council of Governments. Of course, all of those counties and a lot of those communities have volunteer fire departments. So I would imagine that it behooves the San Angelo Fire Department to have those firefighters trained as well for when you have to work together on something like the Wildcat Fire.
Yeah, and you know, the main purpose of this grant, part of it was they were looking for this type of concept to help train some of those people where they could come in and get this training where they wouldn't have to travel. So for us, we work with a lot of them, especially around last year when the fire got to the north edge of the city. We did a lot of work with them, and all the volunteers around here are very good at helping us out if there's anything along the edges of the city and stuff.
The the facility will be run by the city, with the other jurisdictions paying us for their use and their training there, correct?
Yeah, well, you know, some of the classes, like I said, if TEKS comes in, teaches for free, or we may put on something free. If there's cost associated, we would charge for, like if we did a propane school to put out propane fires, of course we'd have costs associated with the propane, stuff like that. So there could be some cost associated with the class, but if they're in this area, at least they wouldn't have to pay food and lodging and driving their expenses up. Those type of classes are generally minimal, just covering your costs to do those kind of training. The other side of that is doing developing classes with Howard College to try to put on fire classes for people that are interested in becoming firefighters. Maybe they're out of high school. We're looking to go back to develop that dual education program with the high school. So if we can get that up and running, where juniors and seniors in high school are able to take fire and EMT classes, by the time they graduate high school, they would be certified as a firefighter EMT. The other side of that is offering fire classes through Howard like they do on their EMS side now.
So for the San Angelo Fire Department, do you envision that as being a pipeline for new firefighters into your department?
I do. I kind of worked on this about 5 years ago, and we had some financial issues when the economy went down in 2008. So with all the entities, property taxes went down, and some of the money wasn't available to do some of that. So hopefully we can get some of this rearranged and begin that again. But that's what I am looking at as a development tool to get people certified, interested in a career in the fire service.
We talked about the partnership that we have with Howard College and with the Council of Governments, and of course that was really important as far as the city landing a $1.2 million federal grant to help pay for the construction of this facility. Talk a little bit about how all those parties came together and how they applied for and won the grant together.
I've been looking for state funds for years, hadn't been able to find any to do a regional type training center. Jamie Rainey with Howard College happened to be going to a COG meeting, and she'd worked with me on the dual education stuff with SAISD. She happened to be going to a COG meeting, and they were talking about the EDA stuff there, and they pitched this thing, and she said, well, what about this developing the regional fire trainer? They liked the idea. We had about 2 weeks to do the grant. I mean, it was a good timing. The COG and Howard College were instrumental in getting that grant, no doubt. I mean, we wouldn't even have known about it if it hadn't been for them.
So we won this Economic Development Administration grant, which is a federal grant that's going to pay for $1.2 million. You've told me before that the cost of the facility will be about $2.6 million. So how will the balance of that facility be funded?
The city will end up covering the other $1.4 million. Right now it's covered from the reserve funds. But we're looking to do a bond and do revenue payments through that as part of the ambulance fees that we were looking at the other day. That's one revenue stream that I have. And of course we do a lot of ambulance training and stuff like that out there, which helps train the people we have.
So the city will be financing the balance of that and potentially be paying for that with higher ambulance fees. I know the city council just last week approved those fees. Talk a little bit about when you took those fees to the council, where San Angelo's ambulance fees compared to other communities.
At this point in time, we were about half of what most of the surrounding communities that run ambulances, such as Ballinger, Sonora, Midland, Odessa, some of our sister cities that we do the benchmarks on. We were about half the cost of those services. And of course things have went up over the last few years. I mean, so most people don't realize how much some of the treatments that we give cost. An IO needle, which is an interosseous needle, costs us about $100 a needle if you have to use it. The pads to do cardioversion with our deals, if you actually have somebody with a stop for heartbeat, those pads are about $114 a set, and so every time you use one, that's that much gone. The cost for medical supplies is just high. Mm-hmm. So those things will help offset some of those costs too.
And so the council approved raising our rates to the average of the other cities that you looked at?
Yes.
I see. And that potentially could be used again to finance the balance of paying for the fire training facility.
That's correct.
Now, when you talk about the fire training facility and how it will benefit the San Angelo Fire Department in particular, how many cadets do you typically train in a given year?
Generally, we train somewhere between 8 and 12, depending on how many we've lost over the previous year, or retired or left.
Mm-hmm. How long does it take for a cadet to go through the academy?
Our academy is 14 months long, and it's 8 hours a day for those 14 months.
So it takes quite a long time in order to get a firefighter from the training center onto the floor of a station house.
it's not just 14 months. It's also about 8 months worth of background investigations and written tests, physical tests, medical physicals, interviews, all that stuff rolled into that when you're doing that many people.
And so we see how that fire training facility will benefit your new firefighters. What about your veteran firefighters? How often will they be going to this facility in order to get training?
Right now they go over there. They're over there quite a bit. We do a lot of things there, and we have to do certain things to help maintain our ISO rating, which is our insurance rating for your housing insurance for the city. We do certain things over there. We do all our hose testing over there. We do all our pump testing. We do live fire evolutions with the firefighters also over there. Any kinds of rappelling off the tower we do there. All our recruit stuff is done in the classrooms there. So we do a lot of training there.
And when we talk about the new fire training facility, when do you anticipate that construction will begin, and when do you expect it to be operational?
We expect it to be operational, I hope, in the spring of 2015, and maybe before. Just, you know how that works, depending on how the construction around here and who's busy. But hopefully by mid-summer, late fall 2013, we'll be beginning on the building part of it. So.
And really quickly, I want you to go ahead and make a pitch for anyone who might be considering a career in fire services. Why is that a good career?
Being in the fire service, it's never a dull. You never do the same thing twice every day, and you're always getting an opportunity to help someone.
Very good. We've been talking with our Fire Chief Brian Dunn. I'm Anthony Wilson, the Public Information Officer for the City of San Angelo, and we hope you'll join us again for another edition of The City.